Hi, in this video I want to give you a short preview of a graphical user interface that we are developing for Harvest 2.0. The reason we are working on this tool even before we have released Harvest 2.0 is because Harvest now has a bit more complex architecture, a strong modular architecture, which means that it consists of many small configuration files, and it would be rather tedious to customize and configure Harvest manually. The second reason is that Harvest actually has a much larger potential than it seems on the surface. So that with the default collectors that come with this alpha package, you can actually collect, I believe, something like 200,000 distinct counter types. And this is something that a lot of users might not be aware of. If you know NAbox, you might notice that this tool is inspired by NAbox. In the home dashboard, you can start your pollers, you can manage your pollers and exporters. But what I want to show you is what you can do with your collectors. So there are two collectors listed here that are of importance today, Zapi and Zapierperf. Zapierperf is something that if you're a Harvest user, you would be familiar with, because it's the same list of APIs that give performance counters and that were used in Harvest in the previous generation of Harvest. While Zapi is something completely new in Harvest. And this is a generic family of APIs, and it's mostly used to get capacity counters. So I want to start with Zapierperf. Zapierperf is organized in the following way. You have so-called objects or counter objects, and Harvest instantiates one collector per counter objects. So I will go ahead and open one of the counter objects, let's say volume. And there are some parameters that you can change in the tool. Let's say poll frequencies. Let's say I want data every 10 seconds. But what's the most important feature here is that you get the list of available counters in this collector object. So you can see that most of the counters are not collected by Harvest. It might be that some of the counters you don't need them, so you can deselect them. There might be other counters that you do want to collect. This is what the tool allows you. And then once you are done, we can save the changes. And I should see in my list of collectors that this collector has changed it. Yeah. So one really cool feature of Harvest 2.0 is that you don't have to restart Harvest when you change your configuration. So I can request the poller to reload the collector, and this happens at runtime. In the background, I have the logs of my poller, so I should see here somewhere that the collector has been reloaded. I should also see that some new counters were added and some other counters were removed. So that's nice. But when I talked about the potential of the collectors, by default, Harvest collects something like 30 or 35 collector objects, but there are actually 600 of them, around 600 of them available. So what you can do with this tool is you can just, on the fly, you can add completely new collectors to Harvest. So let's go ahead and try any one of them. Most of the objects here, I'm not familiar with them. I have no idea what they are reporting about. But let's just try one of them. So this is a similar configuration page. Again, let's say I want my data every 10 seconds, and then I just have to select the counters that I want to get. So there are not many counters here. And then don't mind the parameters. They might be different once we are done with the tool and everything will be documented. But what I want to show you is I have added a new object. So now I can start a new Zapierperf collector. So let's start, and let's check back in my harvest logs. There's a lot of garbage here, but what I'm looking for is these two last lines. I can see that a new collector is added to the poller because the Prometheus exporter also gives us the list of the metrics. So I can also check and verify that the collector is actually collecting data. So that should be port 9977 in my configuration. This is the raw data, but the exporter also provides a list of the counters. So here I think I should see a new collector somewhere in the list. Yeah, so this is the new collector. That's nice. I should be also able to see the raw metrics already. Let's just double check. Yeah, I believe these are the new counters that I'm getting. So that's nice. I also want to show you that you can do something similar with the Zapi collector. Let's go back. Yeah. Let's go here. So on the surface, or at least in this graphical user interface, it looks very similar. In the background, there's a lot more hacking happening because the Zapi APIs are often not very uniform. But if I edit any of my collectors, it should look very similar. I should get a list of counters like before. Unfortunately, there's no description because the API does not provide a description of the counters, but I think this is enough to at least edit your configuration. And then if I go back, again, I have the option to add a new collector, and then I get a list of approximately 2,600 APIs. So these are all Zapi APIs. In the future, when we add REST API collectors or some other collectors, there will be more collectors with the same option. But let's see what we can do here. Most of the APIs, they probably don't have any useful counters because they are intended to manage your clusters. It's anything that ends with get iter, for example. I think that should be something that we can just try out. So let's select this one. Or actually, I wanted the other one. Let's go back. Yeah, this one. So again, what I should see is very similar. I want my data every 10 seconds. I have the option to select the counters that I want. Let's select a few of them. Save, and exactly the same, start the collector, and then check in our logs. Yeah, a new collector has been started. And then finally, let's just double check in the Prometheus exporter. Reload. And here I can see that new counters were added with the collector. So let's also check the raw metrics, just to be sure that we're actually getting some data. I think so. Yeah. Okay, so that's fine. So not everything is okay here. Some labels are missing, but I'm getting the data. So that's nice. That was it. Thanks for waiting for Harvest 2.0, and hopefully You will get soon the alpha package. It might take a little bit more time to get the GUI that I showed you today. Stay safe. See you in future videos.